Hi, Erin.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing all right.
Good. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm excited to see you today and dig in here. As we get started, just can you give a little high level background on your experience here so far and sort of, what you've learned and how long you've been with us?
Yeah, so I'm trying to has it been 2 years?
I
Maybe?
think we're coming right up on
I
2 years.
yeah, so cuz I've done now did the beginners class. I've done that twice actually, and then did next level and the mastery class. And it's always interesting to me like how much more you pick up like even though you've heard it before, like sometimes just hearing it again. Um, so it's been really good. It's been a lot of unpacking of things for me to try and get more sustainable, healthy habits. But that's why we're here today, right?
I love that. I love that word unpacking. Can you give it just like an example of something you had to unpack in order to unlock more healthy habits?
Yeah, so like growing up, food was never a punishment, and actually it was a reward, right? So like you did really good, like great report card, let's go get ice cream. Like, hey, you did great on this, like let's go get ice cream. And it wasn't like, this nice little bowl of ice cream. It was like a giant bowl full of ice cream, right? And so like trying to be like this, you know, that doesn't have to be the reward. Um has been big because I mean, like it would have been like a third of a thing of ice cream, and that was like a standard bowl. So
Yeah.
it's there has been a lot of unpacking.
A lot of unpacking. Well, I love that because I ask you because we will have people watch this, and like sometimes when people verbalize what they have unpacked over the course of taking these courses, being a part of our community, it's like really nice to hear. And then I get to hear from my perspective because I coach people all day long that that's quite a normal, like that's like a very normal activity going on in at least American households is this rewarding through food and honestly it's universal showing love through food or rewarding through food. So and we learn so much in the courses about habits and how thought patterns even become habitual of like, oh, I did something good, therefore the routine is eat something. The reward is, of course, serotonin and feeling good in the moment, and having that sort of that heightens the response to what you did, right? Now you didn't just get a good report card. Now you've got your mom and dad are proud of you. You're getting this sugar boosting, serotonin dropping thing on top of it all. And it kind of like takes good and makes it better. So we learn a habit formation around that pattern. So unpacking this stuff, the reason I kind of dug in there was like unpacking this stuff matters so that you can begin to disconnect those things. So
Mhm.
how have you done that? How have you been sort of disconnecting those things?
It's just been really trying to like at one point I actually sat down and made a list of like non-food rewards,
Love it.
which was really hard the first time I did it because it was like, okay, what's something that's like equivalent, right? Because like there's a difference between like, okay, like a bowl of ice cream versus like I'm gonna go and buy like, something like a crazy vacation or something
Yeah,
like that,
right,
right? Something
right.
that's analogous to like, just something that's a nice small little treat, right? Um, so whether it's like getting a new book or like a new bottle of nail polish, like something that's just like that same pick me up that I'm not eating.
Love it. Okay, that's amazing. Sometimes, even right, I love that you're making this equivalency because I think that's a really important thing for people to understand about how culturally we have evolved and how food is so readily available and so cheap in comparison sometimes to what you may think of as a reward. So I love that you found these things, these smaller things that can give you that little bit of like, I did that, because food is gone, right? Like it's gone after you eat it. And the book is there for days and the nail polish is there for months. So it reminds you of the good thing you did versus just being gone. So good. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge in terms of just the the unpacking of all of this?
For me, it's still trying to figure out, I'm going to say healthier eating.
Mhm, yeah.
and that was again something that it's funny because it's like growing up, I was like, oh yeah, we eat pretty healthy, right? Like, and then you look back at it and you're like, maybe not. Like, I definitely grew up in a
Yeah.
Midwest house where it was like meat, potatoes, like, oh, and here's a vegetable on the side. Um, so there was not, and I mean, we always had plenty to eat, like that was never an issue, but it wasn't, those things were there, but like then portions were also huge. And so I think that's something that like recently I've been thinking about trying to um rein that in a little bit, I guess. Because
Yeah.
for me, carbs is still the pillar that I fight with the most of everything.
Okay. So you've had some movement on all of the other pillars, right? Like you've really seen some, hey, okay, I know how to get more exercise in. And I know you've battled that pillar, but found some things that work for you, right?
Yeah.
And same with movement, right? Like all of these pillars, but the carb pillar, and I think a lot of people feel this way, is that one that sort of is the one that almost is last to tackle. Like you tackle it in ways,
Mhm.
but in terms of like really finding something that works for you. I love that you're already thinking about the portions of food and, just where you came from and how you thought about food as a family. I think people don't take that into account enough. Right, your food thoughts and the formation of thought around food was very much affected by the roof that you were born under. So how you interpreted what a meal should be, or when they should be, or how many times a day they should be, or what was on that plate, that was all formed so early, and trying to change it is really difficult. So um, I love that you said I'm from the Midwest, right? I'm outside of Chicago, Illinois girl. Like everything you're saying is like exactly how I grew up. So big plates of meat and potatoes in some format. It was always that, and then there maybe was a vegetable on the side. So you're trying to shift that now. What is what, as you say, portions are on your mind. And then tell me a little bit more about, like, because we're always talking about habits and behaviors, right? So a portion size is a great behavior to work on because it really is just a behavior of taking an amount of food, and then you're going to behave differently by taking a different amount of food. What is the challenge in that for you?
I think it's the 30 plus years of like, like this here is what, a serving of say chicken is. Like, and you look at it and you're like, that's what maybe like I've been conditioned that a serving of chicken is, but like it's not. Um, and I don't even think that the serving size matters as much for like the vegetables and the protein. But for carbs, I know when I first started this program, like the first couple days that I tracked, like I want to say I had like 300 grams of carbs, and it's because I was like, oh well, this is a normal scoop of rice, and you'd scoop it on your plate, like, and then you measure it later, and you're like, oh my goodness, like that's like that scoop of rice might be your 100 carbs right there.
Yeah.
Um, so that's trying to better portion that out, I think, is a big thing.
Mhm.
Just so it's and I've gotten a lot better with that.
Yeah.
But
Amazing.
there's definitely room for improvement.
Okay. When it doesn't go well, do you notice a pattern around it? Like, um, anything that you can pin your finger on, like, so I'm thinking of my own behaviors. Like when I come downstairs and I'm too hungry and I'm preparing dinner, I'm going like one scoop of rice for you, Cooper, one scoop of rice in my mouth, two scoops of rice for you, one scoop of rice in my mouth. Like I'm eating as I'm serving dinner or making dinner, which can often be for me a whole dinner before dinner. So I'm just giving you an example of like the behavior that I'm like, okay, I keep these on my desk and I put one of these in my mouth before I go downstairs to make, yay, to make dinner, because it's just so easy to kind of go over. So anything that you can put your finger on around, like when it goes well, it looks like this, and I understand it.
Yeah, it's because like for me at least lately, like water has been a pretty strong pillar, exercise, has been pretty good. I've been doing Pilates twice a week.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so like, but I know that right now, like, stress is very high, and so that has trickled down into sleep, which then, like, even last night, like, was making some dinner, and it was like noodles with like um um cooked salami and then like some veggies on it, right? And so it's like I was like, oh, this is really good. But it was kind of almost like, oh, this is this comfort food, right? Like, and I went back for another helping, and I'm like, do I really need this other helping? Like, no. Did I eat it? Yes. Like,
And
um,
in the moment, it felt like the rightest thing to do, I'm
yeah,
guessing.
it was like, oh, but it's so good and it's here and I've made it and like this has been a long day already. Um, so yeah, and I know that just with some stuff that we've got going on, like the stress pillar has gotten a little out of whack.
Okay. And that's why I love to ask these sort of open-ended questions. It's always funny is that I'm guessing if most people start listening to like these recordings back to back, we start somewhere and it actually turns out to be something totally different. But by verbalizing and actually talking through your where you are, we find out, oh my gosh, it's stress and it's sleep that are really suffering. And when they suffer, my portions suffer. That second portion is so easy for me to grab, right? And I love to kind of open that piece up and back up into what if we thought about the stress pillar as the kickoff, right? We talk about power pillars and people have their power pillars. And you were saying, like, hey, I'm doing really well right now. Exercise. I remember when we were doing no exercise and now you're regularly doing 2 Pilates classes a week, right? Like you learned how to get movement in your day. I remember us layering that in, right? With walks with the kids and going to school and all the things, right? Um, I'm wondering about the stress pillar. Have you done work on it before? Has it been a focus for you?
It's never really been a huge focus. And I think now like we're doing a bathroom. I won't call it a remodel because we're adding a bathroom. Um
That
and
is.
it is a lot, and like we're doing the general contracting for it, so like I built all the walls, like we've got to go pick up drywall to start doing that. But then it's like you have a full-time job, you have two little kids, like, like Pilates, like I'm doing that at 6 a.m. twice a week because that's kind of when it fits in, which actually it's surprising how easy it is now to wake up at like 5:20 to actually get there on time. Um, and that's yeah, and then I've got like the bagpipe lessons, like there's a lot going on. Plus we're kind of in that like last month of the school year, and so I'm very much looking forward to we have a vacation in a couple weeks where I can just be like, at least we can like drop the bathroom stuff for a while. We can not worry about work because
And
it's just
school and all the end of year activities, right? It does it, like it amps up right now for the next, 4 or 5 weeks. And then we just fall off that like lovely, gentle summer curve. So in a time like this, I always say, let's simplify, right? And what I'm so proud of is like the fact that you're saying, I'm getting up to go to my 6 a.m. class twice a week. And that's not just become my habit, it's quite easy now. Right. So that sort of same habitual patterning is what we want to do here. So it sounds like, and this is really normal. I want to say like a couple things out loud, just for the people who do listen to this. If you do come in to target 100, most times people come in around 300 carbs and about 3,000 steps. So that's like a general area that I see newbies coming in. And so I just want anyone who's listening to know, if you're starting off and you realize that you have 300 a day, it's totally right in the norm. And working your way to 100 should be a slow thing over time where you take step-by-step changes to your habits to actually get closer and closer. So where would you say you're living in a regular day now?
that is a good question. Um I Yeah, I know that I personally like I hate tracking. I hate tracking it with like a fiery passion.
Right.
um, but like the biggest thing I've tried lately is like just cutting out the snacking. Um,
Fabulous.
and that's helped it's like I've learned enough going through this where it's like I know that if I have a decent breakfast, have my biggest meal at lunch, there's a lot of times I get to dinner and I'm, maybe just like a small sandwich or like something small. Like there's times where I'm like, you know what, I'm not even really all that hungry at dinner time.
Yeah.
Um, but then that also helps me sleep better. So like, that pattern, if I can stick with that, generally works pretty well. Um, and if I keep myself busy enough where I'm like, I'm just not going to give myself time to snack, I'm not going to put the granola bar in my bag. I'm not going to have the extra stuff with me. That works pretty well. Um,
Okay.
you
Wow, I love this. I just love this. And I love that you said I hate tracking with fiery passion. Right? I have just only maybe on the count on my hand of thousands of clients who've ever said to me, I love it. I love tracking and I want to do it for the rest of my life, right? It's just not something to love, you know? And my goal would be that if you hate it, you never do it. And that's why I love hearing these gentle changes like, okay, what I've learned, I need this type of breakfast, this type of lunch, and cutting snacking is a behavior change.
Mhm,
And so and knowing that you're focused on cutting snacks, staying with those three meals, and one is, bigger than the other in the middle of the day, and monitoring that at night you're not even really that hungry is amazing. And now you've even told me that if you don't eat too much, you sleep better, or is it the opposite? Or
it's well, because if I don't have if dinner is my really big meal, depending on when that gets eaten, sometimes then it's like you go to bed and you're just like, oh, I'm not feeling
yeah,
like
yeah.
great. So if dinner's like something small or really light, like there's a lot of times I'll go and just make like like Kroger has like the bag of like frozen green beans, right? You toss those in the microwave. Like I might add like some bacon bits on top of that, and like that might be dinner. And but that that's enough, right? And then it's not heavy. Like it's lots of vegetables, and then I feel a lot better about it. So
I love this, and I'm digging in here for a reason, right? So sleep and stress were two things that you were saying were causing the overeating. So I'm looking much more at those two pillars, but through the lens of food. So now I've really heard you verbalize that and I've really learned this about myself, and it's been a great motivator, is I had my big meal right before this, right? And I had rice and I had vegetables, I had an egg and sprinkled with cheese. It was like a very, very solid, good meal. I will not be very hungry for dinner. Sometimes I do like a half a banana with peanut butter and I'm done. Right. Like you, like great little green beans. Like if I have leftover veggies, I do that and I do a half of a chicken sausage and like that's left over in the fridge. Like dinner for me. And then I know this is hard. Again, we come up against these like cultural ideals of like, oh no, we have to all be sitting down and eating the same thing. And I need to prepare this like beautiful noodle thing that I prepared last night to be mother of the year or father of the year, right? Like, but learning that I didn't have to partake in that again was another really big shift of like I could just eat a little something. It could be totally different than what everyone else was eating, but that I felt so much better. I slept so much better, right? There's a lot of research that if we don't eat for about 3 hours before bed, we hit deeper levels of our sleep, which is really, really great. For me personally, when I come down after leading a class at 9:30 and I'm sort of buzzing and my head says like have some popcorn. I can go like, I hear you, mouth. I hear you, body. I hear you, brain. But I love my sleep so much. And I just focus on that better sleep
mhm.
as my almost like my portion control. So I'm hoping that can help you when you're doing that plating of dinner. Because what I'd love to see us really focus on is like getting you to that smaller plate if you're not already there. Have you done that before? Have you tried that smaller plate?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I have smaller bowls and I've been able to use those, but like we really only have one size of plate and it's not a huge plate,
Yeah.
like it's this
Uh-huh.
because
Great.
this was the salad plate that had come with our set. like the dinner plate was like, I don't even know if I'm still on screen here, but like
I know it's
it was a serving platter. It was
yeah,
a serving platter, and like we kept one, I think, to be a serving platter, and all the rest of them we passed on because we're like, like it's huge. You could put a whole chicken on it,
yeah.
like, and that was the size of the dinner plate. It was gigantic. So,
Yeah. So good. So you're already sort of eating off of that smaller plate. I do a test with clients a lot of times. Like I have them go to Target and I have them buy a plate that's like a nice plate for themselves that's just a hair even smaller than what you've got.
mhm,
So I say Target, like, or I was at Home Goods yesterday and they have all these different plates and they're all different sizes just to continuously kind of reframe like what we think, you know, what we think is enough food. Because most of us have been overeating for the majority of our life. So it feels really good to us. It feels comfortable. It feels comforting to go over past that point of fullness. So I'm going to sort of task you to, the next time you're out, like, get yourself that a plate that goes like another inch smaller and you go, that looks small. Not like a teacup saucer or anything, but like that your brain goes like, huh, I wonder what that would feel like. And I want you to try eating off of it for dinner or for, your meals for a good period of time. I
mhm,
want you to go through the process. Wait till you see how your brain tries to mess with you. But learning that a smaller amount of food makes you feel better all day, right? Even my meal today, it was one egg. My brain said, make two eggs. I said, make one egg. Like I have to always kind of pull myself back. I'm like, I'm hungry. I did F45 this morning. Like, I'm hungry. I did weights. Like, make one egg. And if you have to make another egg, you can make another egg, right? Like, so really getting into that mindset of testing yourself to see where that threshold is where you feel your best. Okay. So a little bit of a test there. And I think less food is going to make you sleep better, which is going to help. Um, so pulling that meal back at night too, I think we really want to focus on that as that being your norm, right? Which now it feels like it's a sometimes thing.
yeah, I would say it's a sometimes thing, and like, cause even a couple weeks ago, I had a couple days where it was like heavier dinners, and even like a heavier dinner with some stuff that I know that my body doesn't digest as well. Um, and I was miserable, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, like, try and remember this the next time, like, you want to go do something that you know is not going to be good for you. Um, because I think there's a like trying to remember, like, okay, how bad does this feel versus like how good does it feel if I'm eating differently.
Yeah. And that we know now from brain science, right? Is that if you will focus on the positive one versus the negative one, right? Of, oh, so that, as you can imagine, even if you listen to the way that that lays out mentally, is, oh, I ate too much. I don't feel good. Remember this. It's sort of like someone pointing out something negative to you. And then we're always talking about the mean girl here and how she's a shapeshifter. I think that's even like pointing us towards what we did wrong to use as a motivator versus saying, okay, that didn't feel good. Let me work. I know that those smaller meal makes me feel good. And getting that plate out and putting it down and going, I hear you, brain, but what I know is like, and really connecting to, like, I have a specific feeling around when I sleep well, or how it feels to go up to bed when I like am comfortable and just laying my head on the pillow and knowing I'm going to have a great night's sleep because I did eat right, I exercised that day, I, stopped my water early enough that I'm going to sleep through the night, like all those things. I've lined them up, so I want you to really see if by focusing on how good you feel versus how bad you feel and how you shouldn't do that again,
Hmm.
may shift your outcome. That's what it did for me. It was like focusing on like, oh my God, I'm gonna sleep so great tonight. Yeah, that second plate last night, or was it last night that we were talking about the noodles, right?
Hmm.
Like you would have been able to step in there and say, I love this food. I'm going to pack it up. It will be there for me tomorrow, but I know I'm going to really, really sleep well.
Mhm.
So it becomes a motivator. And negative and positive motivators exist, but sometimes I feel for some of us who've dieted all our lives, whenever a negative motivator sneaks in, it's often filled with guilt and shame over the feeling of us having done something wrong
Mhm.
and beating ourselves up over it versus being like, changing that. Does that make sense to you? Can you hear that shift?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So I want to kind of focus on positive motivators. So I think
Okay.
we're coming up with some really great stuff, right? Like you're focused on that. We're going to get that smaller plate. We're going to make it that that nighttime meal is always the smallest meal of your day.
Mhm.
Barring, I mean, there's not always, we get to be in here, but like that really, that becomes the norm for you to eat off that new special little small plate and everybody knows it's yours. This is like my household. They're like, don't use mom's plate, like it belongs to mom. Really getting to that mindset because that's, I think you've done enough work here to know that this is the pattern that works for you,
Mhm.
you know. So then maybe we can sleep a little bit better, even if we can improve it 10%, 40% of the nights, it's good,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
because
know?
it's definitely something that, like, I was looking through my Fitbit report the other day, like, it's the last, like, month, I think my sleep, like, just even the time has, like, dropped by, like, an hour on average. Because a lot I mean, there have been a lot of nights where, like, we're up until 10, 11 o'clock, like, nailing things for this bathroom wall and stuff, so it's and now that that's done, it has made me realize that pacing wise, we need to take stuff maybe just a little bit slower so that we're not quite as like everything's got to be done tonight before like the plumber comes in, the electrician comes in kind of thing. Um, so I'm like I gave us a week off between like okay, we got the rough inspection done and passed, which was great. But I'm like we're just going to take a week where we're not going to try and get drywall and like we're just going to take a week because we need
Right.
it because it's been a little crazy.
I love it. I love it. Like stepping back and giving yourself a breath, I think is, it's a lot of what we're talking about here always is like we do tend to just need like barrel ahead and think it should go perfectly. And we don't, we never, if it goes off course by a little bit, everything is bad and wrong. Right. And I think that's where our stress comes from. Like and now thinking through, like I almost want to say, like for you, stress is like the undiscovered pillar. It sounds like sort of been over there. And for many people, it is. I mean, many people are kind of like, Liz, what does stress really have to do with anything? Like, but then they have the data and they go, wow, look, my stress and these projects and my sleep have been off, which is affecting my eating, which is, like it's a domino effect. It's the infinity loop, which I tried to draw here on your notes, but it's a horrible, it doesn't even look anything like an infinity loop. But you see now how it's so connected.
Mhm.
So I love the fact that you gave yourself a week off to kind of get through it. But I think then we want to think about how do we do the week after that differently
Mhm.
so that we don't get into this space again. What do you think those tiny shifts could be?
One of the things that I keep coming back to as far as like a stressor is food and like meal prep. And I know I've been trying to better unlock this for several months. Cuz I know we've talked in the past but like I have a family member that has to eat gluten-free like very very strictly for medical reasons and so we're really limited. Like, I can't just say, like, oh, I'm going to have like HelloFresh deliver stuff or, grab takeout from this place because, like, there's only two places that are safe for them to eat in our entire city. Um, and so, like, we cook just about every single meal that we eat at home, which, is nice in some ways, but it's a lot of work. and,
So much work. I'm feeling for you right now.
and so, like, I keep trying to be like, okay, like, you know, I've scaled back my expectations some. Like, it doesn't have to be like the level of meal I was making like pre-kids, right? Like, because I would spend an hour, like I can cook whatever I want. Um, but there's some weeks I feel like it goes okay where it's like, oh hey, like I've cooked all this stuff ahead of time, but then it's also that balance of like, if my husband is working, which he does a lot of weekends, um, I can't just say like, well, like everybody leave me alone this Sunday, like I'm gonna just meal prep,
Yeah.
because that's not realistic.
No.
So like we've gotten a little bit better where it's like, okay, I'm only gonna worry about like the first half of the week, because I found when I do think about meal planning Wednesday or Thursday, then Friday goes better, which puts me into a better spot going into the weekend.
That's great.
Um, but still trying to figure out like what works really well as far as like, because there's sometimes where it's like, okay, like I can cook a bunch of chicken, just bake
Yeah.
it in the oven, chop it all up into cubes, and then throw it in the fridge. And then like every day it's like, okay, we pull this out, we mix it with like sauce X tonight, sauce Y tomorrow, sauce Z the next day. um but even then, like my husband will make like a pot of rice in the instant pot, which is great, but like then it's this huge pot of rice, which he'll eat a ton of, my kids will eat a ton of. But it's still just kind of shifting, so it's not just meat and potatoes, but really trying to make it so that there's more, that vegetables, I guess I'll say, sing a little bit more.
Mhm, mhm.
um and it's sometimes where I get into the point where I'm like trying to amplify, I guess, the vegetables on the plate a little bit more, so they're not an afterthought, right? So that maybe we can shift it so that it's protein, vegetables, and like
A little bit of
a
carb,
little
yeah,
bit of the rice or the
yeah,
bread.
yeah.
Because even like doing sandwiches and stuff, like we've found some really nice gluten-free ciabatta rolls that we like, and they're 26 grams of carbs, but it's like it's a nice little square, like you eat one,
That works.
you can stack it with as much meat or whatever as you want, like, but it's contained, and it helps that they come in a 4 pack, so that like everybody has one, then we're done.
Yeah.
um, so
Well what I'm thinking of is, like, just trying to think through, you mentioned 2 local places. I often say this to people, 2 local places that are safe for you
mhm,
to eat from for the family. Would do those local places make any sort of, sometimes they do catering, or sometimes they do like something of a vegetable that everyone loves, or like you can pick up rotisserie chickens from there, or like I'm trying to give you something that isn't you having to prepare everything. And I often will do that. We have a place where I love their grilled chicken, so I just order like 6 grilled chicken breasts from them, and
mhm,
we get their rice and beans, and then I don't have to make anything if I don't have time, so it becomes like a thing that I pick up. So
mhm.
thinking through that, if they have, if that's a realistic option.
I mean, one's a taco truck, so there's not gonna be necessarily um tons there. I mean, like I know one thing that we've done is like, so if I make like ground meat and we season it with taco seasoning, like I might go ahead and take half of it and throw it in the freezer. So then
Yeah,
future me is very excited because it's like, oh, we've got to make dinner. And I'm like, wait a minute, we still have some stuff. Um,
yes,
and I had done that for a while with breakfast stuff because I'd made, we call them breakfast cookies, but it's essentially a serving of oatmeal that's
yeah.
baked into a cookie form, and they freeze really well.
Oh,
And so, I had probably like 4 dozen of those in the freezer. Well, like the last of them has been eaten, and so now it's like all of a sudden, if I have one of those mornings where it's like, okay, we've got to go, like we've got to go now. It's like, well, what do we eat?
yeah.
Because like my emergency backup stash is gone. You know, so
I love that though, that you filling up that emergency backup stash might be a task, right? Of of this kind of this week that you have off, saying like, you know what, I'm just going to make a dozen of those oatmeal cookies. I'm going to make some ground beef, or I'm going to take some of that chicken and freeze it this week because I have at least a little bit more time, like
Mhm.
filling that. So I always say there are like for me three levels in my life. There's like sort of what's fresh. And then I have the frozen stuff, like I'll freeze meatballs when I make extra, and I'll freeze red sauce if I make it. I'll freeze a whole bunch of different things. I don't know if there's anywhere in your town, like we have a place where we can pick up these great chicken meatballs that are frozen. And I just always have a couple of those stashed in in the freezer. So thinking through like what could I have in there? Um, and then, I love this idea of meal planning only for half of the week. And then knowing that if you do something either on Wednesday or Thursday for the rest of the week, you're going to be much better off.
Mhm.
So this is the number one stressor for every woman that I talk to. I swear, it's this the thinking through how to feed everyone, and then trying to feed ourselves in a way that's supporting what we're trying to do in our lives, right? Because not all of us, like that's the fallacy that we all can sit down and eat the same meal. Like a lot of families have totally everyone's on a different like either a restriction or a different diet, or the husband's doing keto, or like doesn't but
Yeah.
they don't like fish, or so it's very hard to bring this piece together, and it does create a lot of stress, I think.
Well, and I think even just what you bring up there though is like I've definitely fallen into the the mindset of like I'm only cooking one thing. Like nobody has time to like I'm not cooking you a different meal and you a different meal and you a different meal like and because because my kids largely like still won't eat things like soups or casseroles or anything where like everything's all mixed together. Like I finally have them doing chicken pot pie. Um
Ooh,
but we tend to still cook most things like in components almost.
okay.
So and that's why like, if I and I have a big thing of chicken upstairs that I have to just cook, but if I cook that, then at least it's like okay, at least the protein for the week is done.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well, and I don't know about you, but David's been doing it on a sheet pan. Literally, like he gets the more thinly sliced chicken breast lately and just is seasoning them with a little bit of like whatever. It could be we do the Mexican chili powder seasoning and salt, pepper, and garlic, and flip it, do it on the other side, and just baking it. It doesn't look pretty, but like whatever we put it into, it tastes great. We put it in a salad, we put it in a quesadilla. So I don't know. And the grill is about to be ready again, so like getting into the grilling piece again, I think is like that helps a lot because I always feel like it's easy to grill like six extra chicken breasts when you're going to fire up the grill. So
mhm.
that's helpful that we're going into that season. But I think you've got a really nice, you have an understanding of it. And I think it's still like because when I hear you talking, you're like, I know which meal is the smallest. I know when I meal prep in the middle of the week, it's best. When I like it's almost as if you have the right formula. The thing that's pulling it off is real life, right? Like real life. Like you can't be like, well, every Wednesday I'm going to cook up 16 chicken breasts. And like, well, who knows what happens on Wednesday? Now I have a baseball game and a chorus concert and graduation and like, right? So I keep going back to, do you still do that weekly planner where you just look at the week ahead?
We kind of do a variation of it. We kind of have like family meetings Sunday nights where we have a whiteboard where we have everybody and everybody has a different color marker and so like everything is on there.
Yeah.
But everybody sees it and can refer back to it through the week. Um
Way more organized than me, woman.
yeah, but and we've tried like before like okay, like here's the meals we're gonna do that night. Well, like, I can put anything up there that I want. Like it,
Yes, exactly.
so like on the weeks I do a little bit of meal prep, I might just list on the bottom, like, okay, here's the three meals we already have prepped,
Right.
and then we kind of erase them as we go through them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's still trying to, I guess, just still like one level further of simplifying like the food prep and maybe getting over my expectations of like what a good meal is. Um, you know, might be kind of where I need to go with some of that. But
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's that constantly for us as moms of like being perfectionists and thinking we need to do so many things. Like, I mean, the other night, I'm giving you these examples because I think I just want you to know there's other moms out there, like, just throwing stuff at their kids. Benji had, like, 15 minutes in between a baseball g coming home from school and getting to a baseball game, and, like, I had the rice, I scooped it out, I cut up a chicken sausage, I had 0 vegetables, so I cut up an apple and put it on the side of his plate, and that was dinner,
mhm.
right? So, like, even just being so flexible about what that vegetable is or a handful of baby carrots. One night I was like, I got nothing, I got a cucumber, you're going to eat it, and I cut it up, and that was his side, his vegetable side. So they get it, they get the vegetable or the fruit there, and it's super important, and it's super important for you, especially as you're working to bulk out your meals and keep calories low, right? Because vegetables and fruits are the most calorie friendly things and full of water. They're going to fill you up with fiber, but I think, if you can take that expectation down and do really think about those things that will mix and match easily, right? I love that you're doing the ground beef because we can do so many things with that. I'll turn it into a meat. I'll take a jarred pasta sauce and turn it into a meat sauce and boil a whole bunch of noodles and, throw that at them, and just then again, don't have anything. I'm just going to give them a canned green beans. There you go. Like, so hoping I can, as a fellow mom, take that anxiety down around this has to be like some amazing meal that so many of our meals are fuel. And by focusing on making sure they get a fruit or vegetable, you're fine. It's a good lesson. So, um, so yeah, meal prep is a stressor, and we kind of keep going back to that stress piece. Like, I'm guessing your Pilates de-stresses you. What other ways do you find help reduce your stress?
I mean, I like reading. I really like crafting. That's my kind of my big way. And unfortunately, with some of the bathroom stuff, the the area to the craft room has actually been blocked off for a while. There were a couple doors there that because we hadn't gotten them into the bathroom yet. Um, but it's interesting because one of the quilting groups that I'm part of, they're doing a quilt along for summer that's um sparking joy, right? So like the whole goal of it is, and you don't have to necessarily make it during the summer, but you track like different activities that bring you joy, you assign them a color, and then you cut out like a piece that looks like sea glass of fabric, and then at the end of summer you assemble this into a quilt that looks like just this beautiful collection of sea glass.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is a sign from the universe. This is perfect timing. Like this is what I need to lean into a little bit. Um, because yeah, being like if somebody were to come up to me and be like, Erin, like I'm gonna pay you to just cook and do craft projects all day, like sign me up, I'm done.
Sign me up. Sign me up. So, well, that's funny. So cooking actually, you love it.
I do. I like it when I have time and I feel like there's that I can do it. Cause like I really do, and
Yeah.
we've joked that like even though we're dealing with the celiac disease in the house, like it's a good thing that we do enjoy cooking.
It
Um,
is.
because it would be miserable otherwise. Um,
Right?
so yeah, I found a recipe the other day that it's like um, it's a chicken shawarma kind of knockoff, but like it's done in like 30 minutes and it's so good. And I had made like 4 pounds of it. And like especially the one kid, I swear he has two hollow legs, was just like it was gone. It was gone by the and I was like, where did all this go? And I mean, I'm sure like your kids are
Two
teenagers.
teenage boys, and they're both in sports. It's like the other night, David made like 2 packages of sausage, a pound of ground beef, and about 8 of the thin chicken breasts on it. He did all this at one time, right? He's doing the ground beef in a cast iron skillet. He's doing the sausages in a skillet, right? They're just all kind of warming and cooking, and he's doing 8 chicken breasts. And we're like, oh, we're so set up. By the next night, we were almost out. It's the food and the money right now, it's, like, unbelievable the amount of especially protein because these boys are like, "We lift weights and we need protein." So it's just I'm with you, like, all of this is absolutely truth, but it's lovely to hear that you like the cooking, right? Because like we can put that into a stress relief frame of mind. And you can say like, well, Sunday night is my night to do something, or if there is a night a week where you don't have, and it doesn't have to be the same night every week, where you don't have a lot, and you say, I really want to try out this new recipe. That's like stress relieving for you. I see it for David. He loves to cook, and like it actually like brings him so much joy. So we can press into it in a joyful sense of like one night a week, I'm going to take off all the like I need to do this and I should do that, and like I'm
Hmm.
just gonna make something for stress relief, and
Yeah.
it's gonna serve 2 purposes. So I love that, and I love this quilting thing. I mean, the quilting for you, I think, is just it's so calming and soothing, and what sounds like's happening is in the stress pillar, you know this better than anyone, is like once stress gets turned on, if we don't actively go in and turn it off, it stays running. And what I wrote down here is as I was listening to you with all the things that you're doing in the bathroom and this full-time job and a husband works on the weekends, I wrote like decision fatigue is so big for you, right? And decision fatigue feels like that second bowl of pasta, there is no other option,
Hmm.
right? Once decision fatigue sets in and we're in what we call the catatonic state, we can't make a good decision. It's almost impossible because of that stress and that adrenaline have been running so hard all day that we then are just depleted, and they can see that we make riskier decisions once we're in that catatonic state.
Hmm.
So we make those riskier decisions, the second portion or the gambling or the whatever it is, the shopping or the drinking more drinks, the ability to say no gets turned off. And it sounded when I was listening to you, it sounded like that. Like you had just hit that place of like, that was more powerful than me, right? So it's really about kind of getting in and giving yourself the chance to unplug a little bit during the day. And if that's just a little bit of quilting, or like, or taking a break and getting outside and sitting in the sun for 15 minutes, that's going to help you so much when you get to that dinner and you are trying to make that smaller dinner the norm.
Hmm.
So I think you're hitting a lot of that decision fatigue too, and that's why the meal prepping works
Hmm.
well in the space that you're in the next few weeks.
Hmm.
So well, so I've got a lot of stuff here, right? We're gonna go and find that smaller plate and play around with it. Really focusing on that meal prep. Midweek, knowing you've got to do a little bit, and then pulling back on your expectations around what a meal needs to look like.
That's the biggest part of it right there, I think.
Yeah. What does it mean to you to pull back on that expectation?
Some of it is probably just like it's okay to have like the same thing a couple nights in a row, right?
Yeah.
Because generally, like for a long time, we've been trying to cook enough so that it's dinner one night and then leftovers for lunch the next day. Um, and again, like some nights we plan on doing that, and it's like all of a sudden you turn around and it's like there's nothing left to pack for lunches tomorrow because you guys just ate everything.
Well,
Uh, cause yeah, I mean, like even the other night, like we had made bratwurst and some stuff on the grill, and it was like bratwurst and like 2 packs of hot dogs, and I was like, oh sweet, this will be like perfect, right? And like the 7-year-old ate 3 hot dogs and was like, I'm still hungry. Like, where's it going?
What's happening? Right? No, they're growing. Yeah. So, well, I do love that, and to get when we start where they started this conversation was unpacking,
Hmm.
right? Unpack a little bit, like what does it mean to you, like because I'm thinking about my own unpacking. I'll give you an example, like that's tangential, but like I if I know like my mother and father-in-law are coming over, and I've now been married for 21 years, like we dated for 3 years before that. They've been at my house, I've lived with them. I go into a cleaning frenzy. And my husband's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? They don't care." And I'm like, "But I care. I care." And, like, I had to go and unpack it and realize, like, That was my mother. My mother did that, and if anyone came to our house, we all had to look a certain way. We had to get in fancy clothes. She had to get the whole house clean. We had like how we presented ourselves was so important to her. And I just picked it up as a child of like people can't come to my house. Like and I'm clean to begin with. Like when I tell you the levels of cleaning, like then I'm going into. So tangentially, I had to really realize that I thought my mother and father-in-law wouldn't love me as much if I didn't present as a like a perfect person in my house. And
Mhm,
it took me a while, but I've really held myself back and little by little just let go of that and was like, it doesn't mean anything about me
mhm.
at all whatsoever. And they love me just as much. So I don't know if you have deep-seated like expectations or thoughts around like what these meals mean about you as a person, but I'm guessing you probably do.
Mhm,
So thinking about it and unpacking it and going, what does it mean to me? Like if I served, chunked up cucumbers on the side of their plate versus making some beautiful roasted vegetable or whatever it is. Because I guarantee you, we all have these beliefs that we picked up somewhere. And by letting them go little by little and just trying it one night and going, oh my God, they love it. I call them super cukes. Whereas I just take the cucumber with a vegetable peeler and I cut it so it's striped. And when they were young, I call them super cukes. They're still like, oh yeah, just give me super cukes. And they love it, right? And I get to just chunk up a super cuke. So I hope that that helps for you to keep unpacking. Like, what does it mean? What does it mean? Why am I holding on to this? And getting to a place that's sustainable and livable for you.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. And we all are working on it. So, well, I hope this was helpful. I took notes like always. I'll send them your way. See, this infinity doesn't look
That's
like.
not a bad infinity loop.
Yeah, it's like like a flat tire
It's
infinity.
a little flat, it just needs a little bit of work to come back up again.
I am not creative, I will say in this sense. But no, this was great. And I hope it was helpful. And I'll send you these and let me know how you're doing. Okay.
Sounds great.
Good. Well, thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.